Well, this was a real pile of shit. Let's rank this film on the Cageometer.
All right, that leads us to the most important question of this horrendous shit show of an episode that we had to just endure. Vince, where does Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance from 2011 rate on your Cageometer?
Oh, fuck, I give this a 2. I don't know if that's too harsh.
Coming right out of the gates with a 2.
I don't know if that's too harsh, but the movie's just fucking awful. I honestly, little peek behind the curtains, it took us a while to record this after we all watched it and went through Patrick's breakdown, but I could not for the life of me remember what the fuck happened in this film after watching it.
Yeah, there were a couple of parts in the breakdown where I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Did that really happen? I don't remember that at all.
I don't remember that happening.
Yeah,
and I've seen this
I have
twice.
to sit down and watch it meticulously, scene by scene. Think of the pain I have to go through to deliver that.
You should hate it more than any of us.
Yeah, you really should.
I will say that this is one of those films where I kind of liked it better after doing the breakdown because I could see what they were going for, even though it was bad. It made my rating just slightly better. Spoilers.
Yeah, see, I give it a 2 just because it's awful film. I could see, to your point, like I understand that they were trying to, I get what they were trying to do. They just didn't execute on it at all. Like they didn't. There wasn't a single moment where I felt like they achieved what they were going for. And the performances across the board were fucking awful. And I honestly don't blame them. So like I'll just roll right into that with Cage. Like I got to give him a 2-2, a 2-2, 2, a 2 as well because the script wasn't great. I get that, but man, I feel like with the caliber of actors that they had in this film, they could have done more to bring some humanity to the characters, and that could have saved a ton of fucking hardship from this film. Like if the actors had actually put more into the characters, I think they could have salvaged a little bit more of this film. But man, across the board, they all just fucking phoned it in. Don't blame them. Sounds like it was a shit show. I don't think we talked about this in quick facts, but didn't the crew end up walking off for a while? Yeah. So it's like, I get like this whole production was just a mess top to bottom, but I mean, I don't think it's fair to even try to make an excuse for him. Like, it's a bad performance, bad film. That's all I'm going to say. I'm done.
The crew walked off set because one of the 2 directors, which, always good to have 2 directors on anything, any project.
Well, I mean, if you're the Russos,
you're the Coens,
or the Russos.
Yeah.
The Russos.
Or the Wachowskis.
Yep.
Wow. For the first Matrix.
Yeah.
They made it through one film.
Yeah.
So the crew walked off because one of the directors said something offensive to Turkish people. And the entire crew was, the way that these productions work is they hire local people to work on their films as, people who are already trained. And they talked about how like their Romanian crew was just starting to get the feel for what they wanted to go for. And then they had to move to Turkey and ended up, they had to hire an entire different crew. And the Turkish crew walked off for about a half a day before they apologized and said, "Oh, it was a big misunderstanding." And so
God.
Just if you watch, there's an 1.5 hour long documentary about the making of this film that makes them look so fucking incompetent and terrible at making films that I don't even know why they released it. Because it's like, holy shit, these guys are, basically like bumbling fools.
Yeah. Well, if they didn't release it, they would have lost the rights. So it's a good thing they released it
not
and kept those rights.
The documentary about making the movie, I don't think they should have put out. I wouldn't have put that out there, dude.
Sony's like, people need to know how dumb these guys are.
Yeah, maybe
that was what it was.
Sony was like, well, everybody's giving us a lot of heat on this. It wasn't just us. We did a lot of bad shit, but all we did was sign the check.
I will say on the other side is there was almost no communication with Sony. Like they just did not communicate with each other. They just kind of sent these dudes off into fucking Eastern Europe and said, make the fucking Ghost Rider movie. We think it might be 2D, but might be 3D. We'll tell you 2 days before you start shooting. And then they sent them the fucking, said, yes, it has has to be 3D because we're going to release this around Christmas time, and we want that Christmas market or whatever. And it ended up coming out in February, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Dumped it.
But it was in butt numathon in December. Anyways, all right. We'll lead you over to Nigel. Nigel, where do you rate Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance, your favorite film that we've ever done?
So that happened. I hate this movie. I hate everything about this movie. It's a 1 out of 10, which is the lowest score I will possibly give any movie. There's no reason for this film to exist. They didn't do anything good in it. Nothing worthwhile. Nothing memorable. Performances are awful. The story's garbage. It doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't have any reason to exist other than to just shit out a Ghost Rider movie so they can keep the rights and hopefully make some more movies in the future, because they were terrified of Marvel snatching it back up and actually doing something positive with it, you know?
Yeah.
Because all they had was Ghost Rider, Daredevil, and Spider-Man, and they'd already lost Daredevil because their second Daredevil, well, their first Daredevil movie, and then Elektra tanked or whatever.
Which, by the way, if you're ever wondering why Sony has made so many Spider-Man movies over the last 20 years, why they rebooted the entire thing like 6 years after the third Spider-Man and then rebooted it again a couple years later, it's because they will lose the rights to these characters if they don't make something within a certain time period.
I think it's every 3 years or 4 years. I think it's every 3. Something like that. Which, to their credit, we've gotten some good movies out of that. Like, nothing on the, I mean, even without that deal, Into the Spider-Verse wouldn't have existed, which I think is the best Spider-Man movie that's ever been made.
Yeah.
And that, again, was another case of Sony being like, here's like $50 million, go make a movie. And they didn't mess with Lord and Miller and let them make the movie they wanted to make. But this is the worst comic book adaptation I've ever seen. And I've seen all 3 Fantastic Fours. I've seen all of the X-Men movies.
God.
This is by far the most horrible.
As somebody who refuses to stomach that last Fantastic Four movie, where does this movie come when you compare those two?
Like, so you're talking about the
new one with
the Fantastic
Michael B. Jordan
Four,
and Miles Teller.
That one I actually liked 2/3 of it. That movie was, the first half of it or whatever was pretty decent. Like, it was a fresh take on adapting that story or whatever, I thought. And then at the end, it all falls apart, craps all over itself and stuff. But like, even
or Dark Knight.
Yeah. But even comparing this to like DC movies, a lot of those are really terrible. I would watch any of those over this movie. Like
Wonder Woman 84 over this.
Yes. And that one's awful too. But I don't know. There's certain entertainment value I got out of those movies, I had to watch this again because I watched this last October, just because it was on HBO.
Ghost Rider, right?
Yeah, after we did the first Ghost Rider, I'd never seen this one, so I would watch this one just to see, because I wanted to see what kind of a sequel would be like. Because I kind of liked the first one after watching it, and no, I hate it across the board. I never want to watch this movie again. I'd watch Prisoners of the Ghostland again over this movie. At least with Prisoners of the Ghostland, there's pretty things to look at, and I feel like there's a message they're trying to go for that I'm too stupid to figure out. Also wanted to say I went and read some Ghost Rider comics from like 2005, 2006, just to see what was going on at the time in the comics and what they could have adapted with this. And how's this an idea for a story? Instead of what we got, have Ghost Rider is in hell. He's actually been captured by a devil. He's been spending every day in hell trying to escape, and then every day demons chase him down and rip him to shreds and kill him, and then he resurrects and starts all over every day. That's the torture and hell he's going through. And one day an angel comes to him, says, I'll get you out of here, but I need you to track down a demon that's running across Earth. The catch is both a demon and an angel have been sent to stop this demon, and I want you to get to him first, because I don't want there to be an upper hand in this war between heaven and hell. How's that for a setup for a movie? He sends Ghost Rider up to stop him.
Too expensive.
And that's not even something I made up. That's from a Garth Ennis run that I read called Road to Damnation, which is typical edgy Garth Ennis stuff, which is whatever, take it or leave it. But it's a decent enough setup that you could have a cool movie that is relatively low budget. There's not a lot that goes. It's only a 6-episode or a 6-issue arc.
This is a movie that literally had fucking cartoons in it, so they could have done that setup in a cartoon and then sent Johnny Blaze to Earth.
And that could have been a follow-up to the first one. At some point he got captured by the devil because he doesn't deal with him in the first movie, and he gets sent to hell, and now he's been trying to escape. And you didn't have to have any of the returning cast because it's a whole new story. He's been set up by an angel to go stop a demon and whatnot. But that was just to get a taste of what the comics were doing around that time, to see what they had to back. And who knows, maybe David S. Goyer's script kind of adapted that, because it feels like sort of similar tone in certain respects to the way that comic was presented itself at the time. Yeah. But then they went with this garbage instead. So yeah.
They just handed the reins over to the crank guys and said, do whatever you want. And this is what they came up with.
They said, crank it out.
They were like, you can adapt any of the comics, and they were like, neither of us know how to read.
I should be a director. I could make a crank film.
Yeah. So as far as Cage himself, 2 out of 10, I find it really hard to picture a worse Nicolas Cage performance. It's definitely the worst one that I've seen in any of these movies.
It was real bad. You
could tell he either doesn't give a shit, or he does but knows the movie's not worth it, so he's just phoning it in. I'm leaving it at 2 out of 10 just in case there's a movie that we see where he's even worse. I can't imagine it, but I kind of look forward or don't look forward to that movie when it comes, when we get to it. But I give him some benefit of the doubt because I know he cares about the character, and I kind of feel bad for him being stuck in this and kind of tanking his career for the next half a decade or so. But God, it's awful. I can't remember a single, other than like scraping at the door and saying, so that happened and Merry Christmas, you assholes. I can't remember anything that he brings to this. Nothing sticks out. He's just him. He didn't even cut his hair to look like Johnny Blaze in the first
one. Put the Johnny Blaze wig on.
It just looks like he has this stupid wig of like, it looks worse than my hair, and my hair's awful right now.
I think they were going for like, it's 8 years later. Johnny's hair has started to thin.
Yeah, but it's not. It's a reboot. It's a whole new thing. He just doesn't look anything. It's just
not even similar to the way he looks in the first one. He's gained a lot of weight. His hair,
and he doesn't act like him at all. Like he has some charm and charisma in the first movie. We saw it.
He did say in the behind the scenes that like, because this is a reboot, I didn't use the Texas accent from the first movie. I'm like, why don't you? Why was there no clue for us as an audience that this is an actual reboot, not a sequel? Like, why is it so disjointed from that first movie? Just call it a different movie. Like this, Ang Lee's Hulk.
Was Spirit of Vengeance.
Hulk, and then we had Incredible Hulk, and then
we had Thor Ragnarok. Yeah. Like, why even bring him back? Like, why bring him back? You just confusing.
It's a box office draw.
Yeah, should have recast him. Honestly,
that's gonna reboot.
Might have a better movie,
maybe.
But no, he sucks in this movie. I'm not gonna. He doesn't have any charisma or anything like that. It's just. Yeah, there's no reason for him to be in it other than contractual obligations is to bring people in, and I'm pissed off because I had to watch the movie because he's in it.
It's the unfortunate thing about doing this show is every one of those bad movies we have to watch at some point.
Yeah,
there's so many movies that are on that side. It's like that debate: is Nic Cage an amazing actor? Or is he a terrible actor?
Amazing actor that had to do some terrible films.
It's where, an amazing actor who is very capable of delivering a terrible performance.
I mean, to juxtapose it, I just watched The Family Man to get ready for our next episode. And in that, he gives a great performance. Like, you can see what he's thinking whenever even when he's not talking. You could tell what the character's going through the entire movie.
Yep.
And in this one, he's just reading lines and saying dumb shit and drinking water out of a pitcher. Like, just, you can't tell what's going on. I don't have a read on what the Johnny Blaze, the character, is in this movie, other than what he says he is. So I doubt he tried. And if he did, I feel even worse because it's garbage. Like, it's a terrible performance. So
yeah.
All
right. that leads me to my rating. I had a hard time because, like I said, I kind of enjoyed it more. Breaking it down, as weird as that sounds, breaking it down scene by scene made me kind of like understand some of what they were going for. But I'm not gonna bury the lead. I still gave it a 2. It's a pile of shit. It's a terrible movie. It is awful.
So bad.
Barely coherent. The effects are terrible. The fucking direction on this film is just god awful. I mean, I will say that for like the 5 minutes that I've watched of Crank and Crank 2, just because Maynard James Keenan was in a scene, I was just like, what a fucking pile of shit that movie is. From what I've heard, Jonah Hex is the same way, so it's just like, okay, one of these guys is competent, I'm guessing, and the other guy is dragging the other one down. I think that's what happened with the split. And that's why one of the guys went off and did Mom and Dad, and the other guy made whatever the fuck he's made since. So I don't know. I don't know where the blame lies for this, because it seems like Sony was just like, here's a chunk of money, go make something so that we retain these rights. And this is what they came up with. And they were the ones who hired the fucking Crank guys to make the Ghost Rider sequel. We wanted a dark, edgy version of it, but it's going to be PG-13, and we want it to be 3D so it can be put in fucking 3D theaters for little kids to go watch. But we want it to be dark, not like that first movie, because it's Ghost Rider. Everything about it is just it just seems like it shouldn't have been made. Everything about it is like, let's take a David S. Goyer dark script, give it to the guys who made Crank, make them make a PG-13 movie, have a movie that is almost, every scene requires CGI, but give them no budget. They gave them less than half of the budget of the first movie. Mm-hmm. Send them to fucking Eastern Europe to make the entire thing because it's cheap, but have no producer on set and no communication with Sony until 2 days before filming. Everything, like every set that they tried to use, they couldn't use. I give them credit for making do. Like they did great things with Cappadocia, because Cappadocia is a natural structure.
Right.
Like, just having that as a background is genius. As soon as I walked into Cappadocia the first time, I was like, why haven't they ever made a movie here? And then I watched this movie again.
Careful
and I
what
was
you
like,
wish for.
Oh,
Monkey's paw.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. But it's just an awful fucking train wreck of a movie, and it makes sense. Watch that behind the scenes, and it will make sense why this movie is so fucking bad. I'll jump over to Cage. Cage brought nothing to this at all. I can't give him a 1, but I will give him a 2. And the reason I'm giving him a 2 is because I feel like it was a lot of like the directors just being like, oh, it's good enough. All right, move on. And not really giving him much direction. I don't think they gave him any direction. They just kind of like, okay, well, you have been Ghost Rider. You'd bring what you want to bring to the table. And this is what Nic Cage came up with.
Yeah, but don't you think like he could have at least give the same performance he gave the first time he was Ghost Rider in that case?
He apparently didn't want to.
Yeah.
And like, it was his idea to make Ghost Rider not a drug addict or a drunk in the first movie. That was his idea. So why did you change the character that you kind of fostered over the first movie?
Yeah, the character you have a literal tattoo of on your arm because you like him so. Not you, Nic Cage.
Yeah, Nic Cage.
Because you like the character so much.
Yeah, Nic Cage has at least last time we saw tattoos, he still had the Ghost Rider tattoo on him, and like I really got to wonder, like, did this sour Nic Cage to Ghost Rider in general? Maybe got that thing covered up. He's like, fuck this.
I hope not.
He didn't really want to keep that Woody Woodpecker tattoo because of how the experience of working with the Coens soured his feelings. Then he covers up the fucking Ghost Rider tattoo. I don't know. Did I say I gave him a 2? I gave him a 2.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, that's just because I feel like I don't think that these directors are very good at giving direction. I think, they got lucky because they got Jason Statham, and all they needed him to do was run around and shock his nuts and fucking jump off of buildings and stuff. And that's how they got their foothold in the industry. And then somebody was like, here, make an actual coherent movie. And they're like, oh, shit, I don't know how to do that. So they whipped out this and broke up their fucking... whatever they had going is gone. Like, they haven't worked together since.
Yeah.
It feels like they cashed their chips in and got out. And one of them got married to Alison Lohman, and the other one, I guess, is still directing. But... please don't ever work together again, Neville and Taylor. Let's just call it good. Let's put a moratorium on that relationship and tell you inevitably go for the cash grab of Crank 3 or whatever. Fuck this movie.
Wow. I really thought I was going to be way harsher than you guys, which I kind of was, but not
I think
as much
you
as I
were,
thought.
but I think the ratings still
The ratings
holds
speak for themselves, yeah.
You gave it a 1, so
Yeah.
that's our only. I think that's the
couldn't
only
wait
one we've
to give
ever
it a
given
one. Yeah.
out so far in this show.
Definitely.